Now Democracy and Scorchio are out. 5-1 against. Tourist is second in. A highly respectable, above average debut from him. So we do have a yardstick here. And it'll be interesting to see how many questions Tourist can ask of River Tiber in receipt of the £3. I am Invictus being backed. Michael Callahan, son of Kotai Glory, 14s into 12s. Supersonic Man is weak in the betting, out to 20-1 plus, and 66 is Clon McCash, the outsider. Well, let's refresh our memories about how impressive River Tiber was first time up. Gary breezed through it and demolished them.
That's it in a nutshell, really, Alex, isn't it? I don't think Tony could have done an awful lot more. Have you seen a more impressive 2-year-old debut this season?
Not many, not many. Can't think of many, Gary. He won by 10 lengths in the end, and it's just now where he's just about to be asked for his effort. Ryan Moore rode him this day, rides him again today, and it's only really on the run to the furlong marker he's asked him to go on. He's picked up really well, and there, whoosh, off he goes. And look, it's soft ground that day. It's 5.5 furlongs up Navins Hill, and he's just put distance between himself and his rivals. That's Zona Verde running on into second place, and Zona Verde was beaten behind Baited Moon the last day in another race we watched earlier on. And the fourth horse, Smash Factor, didn't enhance the form next time either. But as we were saying earlier on, Gary, River Tiber couldn't really have done any more than he did. It's just visually it's an impressive performance. There were two of the races run over 5.5 furlongs on the day as well, and for Juvenile's race the time stacks up well with them. So yeah, really likeable performance.
I wasn't actually in Navan myself that day, but just looking at him in the parade ring today, he was behaving very, very well. Looks to have a nice temperament, and he's a good looking sword also. So the early signs obviously very encouraging for River Tiber, and it will be a big shock, I think, if he fails to deliver. Is this horse in shotgun potentially outside of River Tiber and Tourist the one who could play a part?
Yeah, like he's a really interesting newcomer, Gary. As you're saying, he was bought by Michael O'Callaghan at the Breeze Up sales, and we know that the Breeze Up horses that join Michael O'Callaghan, they always have to be respected, and he's a well-bred horse. He's by Kotai Glory. His dam's a half-sister to Fairyland. There's a fast filly for Aidan O'Brien, was a really good juvenile, won the Lothian at the Cheveley Park Stakes, and then sprang a wee bit of a shock, if I remember correctly, in the Flying Five at the Curran Irish Champions Weekend. And Billy Lee taking the ride as well. Lots of positives for I'm Invictus and Stall One. Not that the draw is going to be of major importance in a 5-horse race, but if you were to choose one, I think on good fastish ground at Naas, you choose Stall One on the far rail.
Yes, wouldn't disagree with that. Stable sent out Twilight Jet to land one of our feature events on this card last year, the Goffs Lacken Stakes. There's another look at the outsider, Clon McCash, who's sure to improve for whatever he does today. We are at post time. There is another look at I Am Invictus just about to be brought forward. Just to go back to Tourist Don, I thought Johannes Brahms just maybe worried him out of it last time. To me, he travelled better maybe than the eventual winner through the race. But with that behind him, Ger Lyons 2-year-olds do tend to step forward significantly from their first run. Do you think we'll see a sharper Tourist today?
Yeah, I think so, Gary. And he was a wee bit keen as well early on that day, and he was a bit slowly away, just missed the break. It wasn't a disastrous start or anything like it, but he was just a wee bit slowly away, and he quickly made up the ground. Then he was a wee bit keen, and he probably expended a little bit of energy early on through the race, which ideally he might not have. So with that run under his belt, his first run, his race course debut, he should maybe settle a wee bit better today for Colin Keane than he did that day. And Ger Lyons, his horses, they're just starting to run into form, aren't they? He had that good double at Leopardstown there last week with Power Under Me, and Zarinsk won the Amethyst Stakes, and I think the Guineas Trial, whatever the Coronals Court Stakes these days it's called. And Tourist, yeah, his dams was trained by Ger as well, and she won the Ballyogan over 6 furlongs, won the Brownstown Stakes as well. So she was a nice filly by Zeus Star. So yeah, you'd expect to see Tourist come forward from his last run.
Right, they are now loading them up pretty quickly. The final one in will be Supersonic Man, Jerry Hannon, to call them home for us in the opening Coolmore Stud Calyx race.
And they're off. 5 furlongs for the 5 runners in the opening Coolmore Stud Calyx race, and it is Tourist, and in the centre is River Tiber, and between them is Clon McCash, tracked on settling down by I Am Invictus, and dropped in as Supersonic Man. It's Tourist the leader, 3.5 furlongs to go, being followed by River Tiber. blue and orange of the short price favourite, and then Clonmaccash. Up the inside is I Am Invictus with the back marker Supersonic Man. Very few changes as they reach the halfway stage, and it's Tourist and Colin Keane just with the lead from River Tiber, who's pushed up on the outside by Ryan Moore to try and get on terms, and gets a reminder too, followed by I Am Invictus and then Supersonic Man, who relegates Clonmaccash to be the back marker. Racing inside the final furlong, and it is Tourist joined by River Tiber, who's quickening up on the outside. And it is River Tiber and Ryan Moore going on close home to make it 2 out of 2 in the Coolmore Calyx race. Second Tourist, I'm Invictus third.
Well, fascinating to watch. River Tiber has preserved his 100% record. Briefly looked as though he could be in real bother, as Ryan Moore had to ask him some serious questions. But Don, in the end, he's actually well on top. And I must admit, my first thought watching that is I don't think we'll see him running over 5 furlongs again.
No,
what do you make of it?
Yeah, it was 5.5 the last day, wasn't it, Gary? And it was softer ground the last day as well. And he came up the hill at Navan really strongly today. I agree with you. Like about a furlong and a half out, you're thinking, oh, maybe you wonder what he's going to find out, because Tourist was going along really early in front, and he set a good target for River Tiber to have to aim at, but he's done it really well. The most impressive part of the race is obviously the last 150 yards, the last 200 yards, just when he engaged top gear and went to the line really strongly. And yeah, he's there's plenty of speed in his pedigree, but we see here he's strong going to the line, and yeah, stepping up in trip you'd think would bring about even further improvement, but it's still a really likeable performance, especially through the last 200 yards.
Just on the way to the 2-pole at this stage, and it was round about now when Ryan goes for the whip that I think anybody who had bet the odds on Don might have been feeling a little bit queasy. But here's the impressive part: once he just gets a fresh hold and pulls it through into his right hand, quickly draws alongside Tourist, puts it down there just as he shifts to the left, and now he really devours the ground, puts daylight between himself and the runner-up, doesn't he?
He does, and he wins by 2.5 lengths in the end. You wouldn't have thought that on the run to the furlong marker that he'd win by that much, but you know, Ryan, he was just asking him for his effort. He gave him a wee smack, and then he picked up, and like, you just watch his head. He really wants to gallop, doesn't he? He's got a really good attitude, and this is an impressive performance. Yeah, like a fast ground at Naas over 5 furlongs. It's a sharp enough test, isn't it? And obviously he's a horse who saw at 5.5 on soft ground at Navan last time.